you know, care is part of your central personal values, your political values, part of all the work that you do. And because of that, we've seen a lot of programs that are addressing social problems, and it's a key part of your platform as well. At the same time, the Auditor General has said that we could be having a deficit of about $11.7 billion. So how do you kind of balance this wanting to care for everybody, which is something that we should do, but with the reality that, you know, there are practical consequences as well?
So, you know, there is, we made a deliberate decision that we were going to invest in care, just as we did in 2013-14, make a deliberate decision that we were going to invest in infrastructure. And we actually increased our deficit in 2014 in order to invest in infrastructure. And you know what? Most people said that's a good idea because they see that as an economic benefit. When you say we're going to invest in people and invest in the care of people, that's not so clear that it's an economic benefit, but it is. Because if people are not able to look after themselves, that becomes a real problem for economic growth. So that's the first thing I would say, is that we've invested in infrastructure, we've worked with business, we have an economy that's thriving, and now we've made a decision that we are going to invest in care. And in order to do that, we are going to run a deficit. And we balanced the budget this year. We dug ourselves out of the deficit that came about because of the economic downturn, and now the budget is balanced. There is a disagreement with the Auditor General, between the Auditor General and professional accountants who have worked with us to form our plan. That disagreement has been going on for a couple of years. It's about the accounting treatment of a pension asset. It's about the accounting treatment of our long-term hydro plan. But all of that is clear, it's out in the open, and we're having the discussion because we have been very open and transparent about our books. But if we don't invest in people at this point, when climate change and Donald Trump, the uncertainty around NAFTA and technological change, when all those things are making for a very uncertain global economy, if we don't invest right now, then we won't be at our best in Ontario. And Ontario's advantage is our people. So that's why we're making these investments now. It's part of our economic reality. I mean, they're not just nice social programs to have.
I work in the nonprofit sector, so.
They're very important to an inclusive economy, and so that's why we're making these investments.
Can I ask, though, how do you respond to people who say, and like I said, I work in the nonprofit sector, so I get it, and I get the whole preventative nature of some of these programs, but how do you respond to people who ask you, you know, how can we keep running a deficit in the future? In the long term, isn't that going to damage our economy? How do you respond to people?
So there are a couple of things. In the last 40 years, the budget in Ontario has only been balanced 8 times. 5 times by Liberals, 3 times by Conservatives. So the fact is that we have consistently been in deficit and then climbed out of that deficit, balanced the budget, and then made investments again. That's how we have built the province. And so right now, as I said, our books are balanced. We've got a $600 million surplus, and we are able to make that investment, start that investment cycle. Our debt, because people also talk about the debt, the majority of the debt that we carry is because of investing in infrastructure. So we actually have assets to show from that investment. The accumulated deficit, and that is the accumulation of deficits where we have spent more than we are taking in, that's a much smaller proportion of that debt. So we are paying close attention to that. We are being very responsible. Our debt to GDP, which is, I know it's a technical term, but it's one of the measures of a healthy economy. But if we, as I say, just to go back to the principle, if we don't invest in people, and if we don't see people as part of the economic well-being, then we're missing the point on Ontario's economy. And so that's why we're making these investments.